Hey folks, it's Janek Gwizdala. It's the Janek Gwizdala podcast. We're doing something kind of fun in this episode. It's going to be all playing, all bass, all the way. We're going to talk a little bit about and make examples of what it takes to switch basses, switching between different instruments. I get this question a lot, like, hey, is it really easy to switch between, P bass and perhaps the headless Matheson you're playing, or this RKM 5-string high C that I'm holding right now, 33-inch scale, to perhaps a Madison that's a 32 with more fret. All of those questions. How is it to switch basses all the time? It is something I do more than you might imagine. Kind of behind the scenes. I don't advertise the fact all the time, and you probably see me playing one or two main basses, this RKM, the 4-string RKM, and my newer headless Matheson. You probably see that the most on this channel out of all the basses. But behind the scenes, real music is happening. I'm going out on record dates. I'm doing stuff for other people. I'm experimenting with my own music at home, and I'm playing P basses. And I have this Goya Panther 2 that perhaps you've seen on the channel before, which I love. So there are really like very different things that are in the stable, shall we say, that I do switch between. Spoiler alert, I guess. If you just want to know the answer to the question, it's not that difficult switching between basses. I'll tell you that right off the bat. I don't have an issue with it. Now, I don't have an issue with it so much now, but that hasn't always been the case. And it was something, my bass, whatever that bass was at the time, all the way back in the day, it was my wall basses 27, 28 years ago, something even more than that when I started playing wall basses close to 30 years ago. That was it. That was the thing. That was the security blanket. After wall, it was Federa for many, many, many years, 15, 16, 17 years or something. And I was very precious about it. It was, I want to play this bass and this bass only. If there's an opportunity to sit in at a gig or go to a jam session, I got to have my bass with me. Even better if I have, my gear with me as well. Totally impractical when you're just hanging out and playing in casual situations. And it was, ironically, now that I kind of hate going to jam sessions, I don't do that anymore. There was a period on the road where I'd be playing pop gigs and playing all this other music, and I wasn't really getting to play improvised music. I wasn't getting to play with, a broad spectrum of my friends, for instance. And I would be somewhere in a city. I'd actually want to go to a jam session. I'd want to get away from the daily grind of playing the regular gig that I was on for the year or whatever it was, and go hang out. And I had to get rid of that preciousness with the setup and with the gear. So in order to do that, I started practicing at home with just every bass I owned. I'd take out the P bass and play all my stuff on it. I'd take out the jazz bass. I'd take out a fretless, just anything I had. I would start practicing at home on different instruments. That's something I still do today, just as a challenge, just as something to stretch myself. But that really got me out of the zone of like, I have to have my instrument to do my thing. It sort of took the bass out of the equation even more so. I'd always been like, hey, I'm me no matter what. But then it got to the point where I wanted to be me no matter what the gear, no matter what the bass, no matter what the circumstances. And that is how I get to be able to tell you today, here in 2025, at 46 years old, about to be 47, oh boy, I can tell you, yes, it's not a big deal for me. I don't want to discount the fact that for people out there, it may be a big deal for you, and it may be as big a deal for you as it was for me for many years. So just wanted to highlight the fact that has changed. And I want to get into some of the things, like with this RKM. It's as close to my main bass as any in the collection, being that it's an E through C. It's a 5-string. It's not standard scale. This is 33-inch, even though my Matheson headless, which we'll play in a minute, is 32, as was an older Matheson of mine, 32. It is nothing like something I'm going to play for you, which maybe that breaks me. I've got this bass sitting here off camera that I'm finally going to play on the channel. It's been taunting me for a while, so we'll get to that in the lineup here. And I'm going to try and do kind of a similar thing with each instrument. Let's start out here with the RKM. I've got the Lossy by Chase Bliss, the Lossy pedal. It's I've got it kind of toned down. It's not full breakup, glitchy mode, because I'm using the Lossy right now while I practice for the freeze feature. So I can have this, it's kind of subtle there in the background. So I haven't really planned what I'm going to do, but I kind of want to stick in this tonality. We're going to play in the same key with each instrument, and I'm going to play around with this G drone and kind of like do my thing, be melodic, be chordal, move the harmony around. And just see if there are any hitches between the instruments. I'm feeling nice and loose with the RKM. It's very comfortable. Obviously, I had a hand in helping design this instrument, so one would hope it would be comfortable and kind of providing all the things. All the things I need. Feels smooth, it feels nice. The action is where I like it, which is pretty high. It's comparable in terms of setup to all of the instruments. You like this one that I play on a regular basis. So really nothing sticking out. I just picked up the bass actually and didn't mess with the EQ or the setup in terms of the electronics. Kind of playing on the back pickup there. We can move to the front, maybe get rid of the reverb for a second. Yeah. In fact, all the people who bought one of these instruments, we did a short run of these a few months ago. Those I've been seeing the progress. They're almost done with them. I cannot wait to hear one of you or all of you, the 10 people who got one, lucky people who got there quick enough before they sold out. I can't wait to hear your reaction to it. And as you can hear, it suits me very much. That was the whole point of the collaboration, and to have something like this in the lineup at home, it's been really useful for certain recording projects. And as you can hear, very pleasing to play. No hitches at all. Now let's I grabbed something. We're not going to go straight to the headless thing, because that's also a question, right? Going from a headless to a regular headstocked bass, how crazy is that? I actually picked out something from the closet I haven't played since I got the new headless Matheson. Now this was like my main bass every day for years and years and years. And I haven't touched this since January. Literally, these are the first notes I'm going to play on it since January, since Anders gave me the new bass. It's definitely going to need a tune-up. Let's see where it's at. It's a little sharp. We've had some temperature changes here in California. So we'll give it a quick tune. It immediately, just as I'm tuning it, feels familiar. I've played thousands of hours on this instrument, but it also feels comfortable. Obviously totally different though, right? Let's check in with things. Things probably got moved around in the gig bag. Oh. Ooh, it does feel very nice. Let's stick with G with our theme of with this key center. Let's do a similar thing to the bass you just heard. So you can, on your own time, A, B it, and decide which one you like. You know, you can hear differences that I won't be aware of right now. The first thing that really sort of comforts me about both of these instruments, these first two instruments we're looking at, is that there's nothing about the experience so far that tells me, I don't think you could play a gig on that. Like, I could throw this bass or the RKM in the gig bag and go play the next tour on it. Oh. And it really has a very expressive thing to it. Ah. And that's not the bass causing that me to screw up that line. That line just needs more work from my end. Yeah, wow. I gotta say, if I'm being totally transparent and honest, I was a little bit afraid of picking this instrument up, and I don't really know why. Maybe it's because I spent so long with it, and like, obviously I love the new headless. That's what I'm using most of the time. That's what I'm taking on the road when I leave tomorrow with Vital Information. But there is like so much depth to this instrument. It's the opposite of difficult switching instruments. It makes it a joy to switch instruments when they're this good. I guess that's another consideration as well, right? Maybe I'll have a harder time doing that if I was just, sitting here faced with a bunch of $200 instruments. Maybe it's not as easy. I'm very, very fortunate to be in the position I'm in to get to play instruments of this quality. So that we must put it into context and not discount that fact. I don't want to lose sight of the fact of my position of be very privileged to be able to feel these instruments in my hands. Let's maybe, out of the 4 instruments I've picked out for today's episode, let's maybe make the most extreme switch. Let's make a reveal here of this bass that has been taunting me, that my good friend Tosin Obasi gave me a few weeks ago. Okay, he loaned me a few weeks ago, because I'm talking to him about what might make it. Like, it's definitely not an instrument that's dialed in for me. It's not my style at all, but I've always been curious about what Tosin is doing musically with the instruments, with the building of these. I'm going to tune it up a little bit. Let's see. But this already is like, just the feel of it. You can see just by looking at it, it's completely different. It's and the avocado fits right in, in the spot right there. It is so different right out of the gate. Just the intuition to switch, not to reach for the headstock because there isn't one. It's just this, sort of typical headless thing. And I do like the hardware in the back here for tuning. And there's like this nice cavity underneath the tuning pegs. It's kind of routed out there so you can get your fingers in there. Like that a lot, actually. It's a nice design feature. Now, holy crap, it's so different. There's our G. I'm going to have to switch my brain completely differently now because this is B through G. And although I can hear that's G, it doesn't make a lot of sense feeling-wise because I'm so used to the high C. And I gotta find something that works tone-wise. The fan frets are so extreme on this. I'm missing a lot of things by a half step. And talk about a scale length difference. This thing is 37-inch on the B string. It's totally insane. Like, I'm really having to reach, considering, what is the Matheson is 32 that I just played. This is 37, so it's 5 extra inches on the B string. That's totally crazy for me. That's really... It's quite a bright sounding instrument. So of course, this is a total wild card. It's not really a fair placement, but this is a good opportunity to throw this into the lineup and show you that even though this is a really extreme example of something that, I might not ever play, actually, it is possible to pick up an instrument, any instrument, and make music with it. We've got to find a sweet spot. Yeah, that one will shake the house. And actually, I've been looking at the fingerboard a little bit too much. I just realized. And actually better just to try and do it by feel. Not always possible because it's so alien to me, but maybe we'll grab a pick. I wish I had a bunch of like distorted stuff tuned up on the board. Probably be a better representation of what this bass was intended for. I'm gonna overload everything here probably. Yeah, feels maybe a little more comfortable playing with a pick. But yes, that is definitely an example of something way more extreme than I'm used to playing. Again, probably something I wouldn't normally play. And it is interesting when I was at Tosin's place checking out the bass, how extreme the fanning of the frets are, to the point where I have to change the chord shapes when I get up past a certain range in the instrument. So completely different fretting hand set of parameters that I'd have to deal with that. I am going to make some kind of full video with this, probably nice and overdriven and djenty and clangy. I just haven't had the time, and the road is coming up. But I'm happy to be able to throw that into the mix now. So we get that option of extreme headless, and from one extreme headless to another, we arrive at the bass I'm putting in the gig bag to go on the road tomorrow. The Matheson, the new headless, the Matheson 5-string high C, fully chambered. I got to try and get all of the specs in there so that the comments don't get overloaded with, hey, what is that bass? What does it do? And right away, obviously easy to play because it's straight frets, it's 32-inch scale, etc., etc. Let's get back into our G pedal thing. That we did on the previous instruments. And as you can hear, it's a different characteristic. And just FYI, I haven't changed any settings in the pedal board in terms of the preamp or the volume, the gain, any of that. I've kept it the same for each instrument just to see if I can use my fingers to play against what's there. And really kind of challenge myself to get the sound I'm hearing out of the instrument without having to change anything. Obviously, it's probably the place I'm most at home. Very, very nice to play, as are all the basses, don't get me wrong. It's just, this one and the RKM are probably the two things, as I had somewhat of a hand in designing, or at least discussing before they were built. That's why they have successfully found themselves in the little roster, in the lineup of instruments that I use. And yeah, the weight is a massive factor. Tosin's bass is not heavy. Looks like it could be kind of chunky and heavy and weighty, but it's actually not. It's pretty lightweight, despite the extreme scale length and all the rest of it. This one is definitely, this Matheson headless is definitely on the light side, which is fantastic. I've actually been experimenting with my seating position, where the strap doesn't go on the shoulder, but actually goes behind me around the waist. Feeling a bit of a better balance like that. Because as a seated player, I don't play with the instrument sort of parallel to my body. the headstock, the neck is always facing out a little bit, maybe at a pretty much a 45 degree angle, something like that. So unless I lean over the front, unless I lean over the front of the instrument, I don't get a massive, a great view of the fretboard. Again, I don't look at the fretboard when I play so much. So this is sort of a perfect seated position for me. And the strap, it feels like it's sort of helping a little better in that sense. You know, not sure. Just experimenting with it right now. And I have been standing up and playing the occasional tune in a standing position on a set. I haven't done that in a while. I think it's the extreme amount of hours that I've been seated and practicing recently that have led me to try and be a little more active on the gig, maybe. We'll see. It's all subject to change. Yeah, and the range of sounds you can get out of this is pretty crazy as well. So yeah, let's put that to bed once and for all. It has been, but it is no longer difficult to switch between instruments. And if you get sort of on the front edge of that, if you don't let it consume you like it did me, I think you'll end up having a lot more fun when it comes to music. You'll be less scared to switch basses. You'll be less worried about which bass you're taking to the gig. You'll be more concerned with making great music and having a great time doing it. And I think there's probably nothing more important than that. You know, if we're just stuck in our own little world of insecurities, it can be a drag after a while. Trust me, I've been there many times. There have been many insecurities, and there continue to be insecurities at times, of course. But if a big one is literally the instrument you have to hold every time you make music, and you can get rid of that, that's a big win, I think. So if this episode of the podcast has taught you anything or helped you anything, I hope it is to not get too attached to the instrument. That's something I do by checking the instrument when I fly. I'm kind of okay with it getting delayed, hopefully not damaged. I like to think I take care of it, but at the end of the day, the bigger picture is that it is just an instrument. That is not to diminish the incredible builders of these instruments, but I think they might actually agree with that sentiment. It is, at the end of the day, just a piece of wood, and it can be replaced or changed or swapped in and out. You know, if an instrument gets delayed and I have to do the gig on a P bass, not such a big deal, not the end of the world. And maybe it makes me appreciate my favorite basses when I get them back a little more. Anyway, we are definitely, as I'm leaving on the road tomorrow, I shouldn't be talking about instruments getting delayed. Definitely hoping for a easy breezy tour, and luckily it's a lot of driving. We just fly. I'm just flying out to the East Coast and starting the East Coast tour with Steve Smith and Vital Information. Tour dates on my website. Everything is linked below, as are Line 6 presets, all the books, all the merch. You know what to do. It's all there. Really appreciate you spending some of your insanely precious time hanging out with me, digging through some basses that have been stuck back there in the closet for a while, and looking at the fact that it is not that difficult, not that complicated to move between very different instruments if you take your time and take your sort of insecurities out of the equation. All right, catch you folks next time. See ya.